Hey y'all, it's me, Dr. Rahman, Gyno Girl. Welcome back to another episode of Gyno Girl Presents Sex, Drugs, and Hormones. I just recorded this episode. You guys are going to be very excited to hear Monica Molenaar. She's a serial entrepreneur and advocate for frank talk and common sense solutions around women's health and wellness. At the age of 40, she tested positive for a BRCA gene and elected to remove her ovaries prophylactically to reduce her risk of breast and ovarian cancers, thereby ending her natural production of estrogen and sending her into surgical menopause overnight, complete castration there. This began a multi-year journey trying to make sense of all the misinformation and lack of clarity around this phase of life. It was only after starting to supplement with estrogen and progesterone that Monica found relief from menopausal symptoms affecting her quality of life and was able to get back to work. She was inspired to start Alloy to make sure that other women entering menopause could have easier time than she did, access incredible information, effective and safe solutions, in a supportive community. Monica is a graduate of Stanford University Business School, a lifelong New Yorker, and now resides in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, with her husband and 2 teenage sons. So you guys are going to enjoy this a lot. A lot of these menopause platforms have popped up all over the country, and this is a very good platform that I think has helped a lot of women access care that cannot. And so if you think about the fact that, as of March of 2024, 75 million women in the United States have entered perimenopause, menopause, and 6,000 more are entering menopause every day. So 75 million in the US, 6,000 every day. That means that half of the US population will eventually experience menopause, okay? So that's a lot of people. And there's only a few of us that, like myself, who are menopause specialists, who will take the time to talk to patients. We're not that much in terms of, the number of people. I think it's less than 10% of women are actually getting menopausal hormone therapy. And again, if this is something that you're interested in and you can't get access to, it's very important that you know what's available. So today I have a conversation with Monica from Alloy, and she tells us about her journey, why she is so passionate about midlife care, and what they offer on their platform. So stay tuned. You're going to really love this one. Please welcome Monica Molenaar. Hey, Monica. So thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here.
Awesome. Well, in my intro, I talked about, your entrepreneurship and your journey into creating really one of the probably best, I think, menopause apps and access to menopause care out there, because we know how many women are going through menopause right now and how little access they have to good care. Like, there's only so many doctors like myself who specialize in it. So, but I want to hear, and I'm sure the listeners want to hear, because you made a shift in early midlife. You're in early midlife, not like I was looking that
50 now. Yeah. 10 years.
I was looking that your Anne and Dr. Malone got the Forbes 50 best. What was it?
50 over 50.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, where's Mon? And I was like, oh, she's not 50.
Well, the funny thing is, I had turned 50 by the time it came out, but I wasn't 50 when they were doing the.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I was a little jealous. I was I'm not gonna lie. Like, when was the last time you ever were so sad not to be 50? But I do love being 50, and I'm glad that I turned it. And
well, yeah, I'll be there soon. So, anyway, let's talk about it. I mean, tell us, your journey. Like, you went to Stanford, you're an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, like you've done so many things. What was it? And I know you met Anne, I'm
2018.
2018. Okay. But tell the listeners and viewers, what motivated you guys? I mean, this is a huge platform now, and really, and you can kind of go into what Alloy is, but it's a great menopause platform offering menopause care for patients all over the country. So tell us, your story of what motivated you to do this, because we all have a trajectory of what,
how we got here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, so Alloy, just to frame what Alloy is a telehealth platform for women in all stages of perimenopause and menopause, where we offer access to really credible, authoritative information, up-to-date science, access to affordable, convenient access to the expertise. As you mentioned, there are very few menopause specialists in the country, in the United States, and around the world, to be frank.
Sure.
And yeah, this is not a unique or exclusive problem to the United States. I actually live sort of between the U.S. and the Netherlands right now,
Yes.
and I can tell you that in Europe it's a big problem as well.
Yeah.
So we offer access, really convenient, affordable access to really good expertise, doctors, medical doctors who have generally decades of experience treating women in midlife and dealing with menopause, and also access to the prescription treatments that are going to not only make your symptoms go away today, but protect and protect you against, chronic diseases, prevent the chronic diseases like osteoporosis, like
Right.
heart disease,
Heart disease. Yeah.
very likely dementia and other things that we disproportionately affect women as they age, from
Absolutely.
the loss of estrogen, as you
Absolutely. We always talk
know
about
well. Yeah.
Mary Claire in the menopause. He always talks about the nursing home prevention program.
Yeah,
Oh,
100%, 100%, and
so
I'm very much a part of
it's
that,
yeah. So I think that
and
it's
on that train.
right. And I think it's
But
very important to remember that, we give these medications, mainly for symptom relief, and the guidelines are all around that. But we know that it's protective for the bones. We know that there's cardioprotective benefits. And you're right, likely brain protective benefits are, preventing dementia, although, some of the data is ambiguous about it. But I think for those of us that do it, we see a difference in our own brain.
even if it doesn't, I mean, it's certainly not going to make things worse.
Right.
So
Right.
all of the other things that it's protective of, to me, are, have really made me become an estrogen activist in the last 6 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but I wasn't always in this place, obviously. As I said, I just turned 50. When I was 40, I had my ovaries removed prophylactically, um, really because I was mainly more concerned about ovarian cancer. I was diagnosed with the BRCA gene. My mother and my grandmother both had breast cancer twice very young. My mother was 36 the first time she had breast cancer. So I've been screened since I was 25. And my grandmother's breast cancer had metastasized to her ovaries. Neither of them died from it. So I was less afraid, to be perfectly frank, of breast cancer. But I really, I was young. I had two young children. I just knew that I didn't have any bandwidth to be dealing with ovarian cancer if that happened to me. So that was kind of really my main motivation for getting my ovaries removed, after having been encouraged by every doctor that I had been to, which, were kind of myriad and many. I had my OB-GYN. I had a breast surgeon that was following me from the time that I was 25, who had been my mom's breast surgeon. So everybody I met in the medical community was encouraging me to do something surgical. But
Yeah.
until I knew that I was finished having children, and, I was really young, like I just wasn't prepared for it up until that point, until I turned 40. And it was really around the time that Angelina Jolie came out with her
Yes.
op-ed, and there was a lot of information all of a sudden that was coming out in the media about, if you have the BRCA gene and you get your ovaries removed by the time you're 40, that you further reduce your risk of breast cancer. And, and that seemed to me like a good idea. It was a non-cosmetic surgery. Nobody would know
Yeah.
that I had done it, and
Right.
which at the time felt important. Now, obviously, everybody knows everything that's going on with my health journey, and that's okay. But, I was in a different place, obviously, and the world was in a different place. But literally nobody spoke to me. Not one doctor mentioned, like, you're going to go into menopause the next day, and here's how you deal with it. And this is what it means. And this is, what you should know about hormones and the loss of hormones, and how it's going to affect your body. And so I basically went into like 6 months of crisis, where I don't even know how I knew about menopause, but I said to the doctor, like, the surgeon who was at Memorial Sloan Kettering, I said, do I need to take hormones after I have the surgery? And he said, well, your body will still have some circulating estrogen, so just take them when you feel like you need it, and get a prescription from your
Not that this is
obstetrician.
an immediate like
Right.
castration.
I was like, what does that mean?
Hot flashes the
Yeah.
minute I wake up. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So I didn't know what that meant when I need it. And I funnily enough, I never had hot flashes. That wasn't my symptom. My symptoms were essentially that I stopped sleeping immediately, like didn't sleep through the night for 6 months. And
Horrible.
I gained 20 pounds pretty immediately and couldn't do anything to dislodge the weight. And so I was just kind of getting more and more depressed. Like, I don't know what to do here. And my gynecologist said, well, you can't take hormones because your mom had breast cancer and you have the breast cancer gene. And so, so I was sort of shit out of luck and kept going to different doctors and sort of trying, like, just going deeper and deeper into this sort of dark hole of, like, it's affecting everything. Everything in my life, my relationships, my marriage, all the stuff. And finally,
we know the cognitive effect that you have when you lose estrogen too, like, and with emotional, like, differences, irritability, all the things that we know about when people go into menopause. So it's like an avalanche of things at once.
Yeah, it was pretty
And you
awful.
lose your testosterone immediately too, right? Like, for some women entering menopause, it's more of a slow, you lose 50% of your testosterone like that. So I find people's libido and energy go plummet.
For sure. The interesting thing about testosterone, and I have used it multiple times over the years, and I now use it sort of again, but I've used it in different ways. But the first time that I was offered testosterone was only for libido. And, libido is a very complicated thing, especially when you have so many other things going on. And, it has really a lot to do with not just your testosterone, but your relationship, your feeling about yourself, all the things.
Social, we always talk about sex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was not like a magic bullet, like, whoo, got some testosterone and now I'm like raring to go. No. And so.
No. In fact, it's usually slow for libido, but some people find, I think, their cognitive improvement comes right away, or maybe energy, but the libido comes slower.
I guess I wasn't really looking for that, so, like, it also really depends. I find that, or I have found in my experience that let's say 95% of the benefits when you're in menopause, the really sort of marked change comes from replacing the estrogen or supplementing the estrogen.
I believe it,
And then the testosterone kind of helps to fine tune some of the things, like, my arms, now that I'm working out and lifting weights and lifting heavy weights, like, you can tell that I'm working out. Like, my arms look toned and cut, and I like that. So that I do believe that comes from the testosterone.
I will say that, in general, like, the guidelines, from a clinical perspective, are really around hypoactive sexual desire disorder. Although for those of us who treat and replace testosterone, and that's low libido with bother. Like, if you're not bothered by your low libido, if it's not frustrating you or causing any issue in your life or with your partner, then, you don't have to go that route. But hypoactive sexual desire disorder is the primary reason we do replace it per guidelines. But for those of us who, like, have been doing it for a while, know that it's libido is a mood, right? And we know it acts on your brain. So obviously there's other effects that we see in patients. And so it might not be the primary reason we give it, but we always, caveat that by saying, you might get improvement in your lean muscle mass, and you might have improvement in cognitive function and all these things.
And I've seen that. I mean, the part of the problem with the whole testosterone discussion is that it's really difficult to get. It's difficult to have it prescribed. It's difficult to access. There's no FDA-approved female version of it. Yeah. And so I think for women to kind of get hung up on testosterone, like, really the biggest change and benefit will be using estrogen and obviously progesterone, and then, which is much easier to access. That is what we offer at Alloy. And, as laws change, hopefully, or when we're able to kind of, and as we get more evidence and do more research about testosterone in women and sort of get a dose that, I think we know a lot, but there's still a lot that we need to find out. So anyway, the interesting thing about this time of my life, when I had my ovaries removed, was that at that point, I was a stay-at-home mom. So I wasn't yet an entrepreneur. I between 30 and 40, I sort of was in and out of the workforce. My first son was born when I was 30, and I was working full time. I went back to work, right after my maternity leave. And about 7 months later, I had a full-time caregiver for him. I was traveling quite a lot for the job that I had, which was for a furniture manufacturing company doing marketing and product development. And this was right after I graduated from business school. And I had the caregiver that I had for him just really wasn't working out. And in lots of ways, I sort of was hearing from neighbors in my building, like, how terrible she was. She was not taking care of me. It was really a traumatic experience.
That's
it was awful.
traumatic.
It was awful.
Or watching the child. Wow.
Oh, it was terrible. And not being there. And so, and it was December 23rd, I remember 2005, that I needed to basically, let this woman go and figure out what to do next. And so I was about to go visit my parents-in-law in the Netherlands, where my husband is from. And it was Christmas time. And then, coming back, and I had the world was a totally different place. I had 2 weeks of vacation for the year. There was no option for remote work. My employer was completely inflexible and literally told me that they had a policy against flexibility because it was a manufacturing company. And if they offered it to me in management, that they would have to offer it to all the women on the manufacturing floor. And so I was allowed to take my 2 weeks of vacation for the year, starting January 1st, to find a new caregiver and then not have another day off for the rest of the year with a, under 1-year-old baby. And basically I couldn't work part-time. I couldn't work from home. Like, it was a completely different world that we were in. And so I really was left without a choice. And so I left that job. And then I spent the next couple of years, I had another baby 2 years later, and I stayed home with the kids for a while. And then I went back to work in 2008 full time. My husband was at Lehman Brothers, and it was either like, okay, we're going to, I need to go back to work full time or be fully sedated, because I was so completely anxious about that. And then I kind of left that job. Like, my family was always my priority. Then I worked part time for a while in PR, and I just was sort of in and out depending on what the needs were of the family. And so I never really developed my career in a linear fashion.
Sure.
And I always felt also like, I'm pretty educated. I went to an Ivy League college. I went to Stanford Business School. Like, I kind of felt like I should be doing something with my life, but I didn't know what that was. And, and I had never found my work passion. And so when I turned 40 and I had my ovaries removed and it was clear I wasn't having more children, I was having these discussions with my husband, like, first of all, we needed the money and I needed to support him.
Yeah.
Also, he was working really hard and sort of I needed to contribute, and that was important for my marriage and important for myself and all the things. But what was I going to do? I wanted to do something different. I had this kind of traumatic break with, the last corporate job that I had when it was completely inflexible. I didn't want to do that again.
So unsupportive.
It was really hard. And in the 10 years, I had kind of developed different interests, and I was really interested in food and nutrition and the different ways that, Americans were starting to eat, and kind of how the information that we were learning about, whether it was veganism or gluten-free or protein or, just like having better options essentially. And so I wanted to work in the food industry, and I literally could not get a job because I hadn't worked in food before. And also because I was
the catch-22,
too old. Yeah, I was too old to start way at the bottom, and I was too inexperienced to sort of do what I'm doing now or to run a business. So I really didn't fit in anywhere. And I was just getting rejected right and left and feeling worse and worse about myself. And also was dealing with this sort of trying to figure out how to get some hormones back and feel like myself again. And so it was a really, really difficult time.
Yeah.
And luckily, the first thing happened was that I did get a prescription for HRT, thanks to a neighbor of mine who saw me one day looking really bad. And she said, are you okay? She was 15 years older than me, and she obviously had been through it before, was going through menopause herself and had worked it out. And she literally put her arm around me and she said, I'm going to help you. Don't worry. I'm going to help. I'm going to get you help. And I'm going to connect you to the person. I know it's almost going to make me cry because it was so powerful and meaningful to have an older woman who knew what she was talking about bring me along and, and say like, this is something that you can deal with and you will feel better. So
just
that was really important.
Are losing faith in humanity. You hear stories like this and you're like, wow, there's some still really good people out there.
Yeah, it was great. And so she and I became pretty tight after that. Also, she had just gotten a puppy and I had little kids. And so it's like rent a dog. So we were really close at that time. And
this was in New York?
This was in New York City. Yeah, I was in the middle of New York City. My father also is a doctor. He was on staff at Cornell, Weill Cornell Medical New York Hospital. Like I had access and I still couldn't find the help that I was looking for.
Isn't that amazing? Like, it's for someone who has access and, privilege and everything and still like you can imagine people in the opposite position who are kind of like even worse case stuff. So wow,
Well, not only can I imagine, I know for a fact now that I've been working on Alloy for the last 5 years, I've spoken to thousands of women across the country, all of whom have had a similar experience to mine and have gone to, and really it has no, who you are, how much access you have, how privileged you are, has no bearing on whether or not you can find this care. Even Oprah went to 5 different doctors before, about her heart palpitations before somebody said you're in menopause and gave her what she needed.
And if you're an XX and you live long enough, you'll go through menopause. So
everybody
will have this, and we don't want everyone to have these stories.
Exactly.
I hear them every day too in my office. It's like I'm the 56th person, and they're like, "Where were you 10 years ago when I went through menopause?" And I'm like,
"It's awful.
I was here, but you didn't find me."
It's crazy. So anyway, at that point, I was dealing obviously with a lot of things. I was 40 years old. I had 2 young children. I was out of work and looking for a job. I was dealing with my newfound menopause, situation, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I just kind of realized like, okay, this looking for a job thing is not working. If I want to get a job, I need to create the experience that I need in order to get employed. And so I'm going to start a business and I'm just going to do it myself. And I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to get going and I'm going to do something that I'm interested in. Also, because I knew from those 10 years of being in and out of the workforce, like I've been a stay-at-home mom. I've worked full-time as a working mother. I've worked part-time as a working mother. Like I've done all the things. And I think that that's one of the things also with Alloy. Like I've had compounded hormones. I've taken oral, I've used the patch, I've used the spray, I've had pellets. I literally try everything until I sort of land on a solution. And that's, I think, part of the superpower that I have to give to other women is like, I get it. I understand the situation that you're in. I've been there before. I've worked through it to try and come out the other side. And I understand the context and sort of what all of the different solutions are. And so I love being now in a position where I can help other people get through this journey themselves.
Wonderful. I have to say it takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to say like, okay, I'm going to now, totally shift and do something that's very scary. I mean, in September, it'll be 10 years that I started a solo practice. So I get what you're talking about because it's really scary to go into, I mean, for me, a business that like, I didn't learn business and medicine. So it was one of these things where like, I was like, people tell me I'll probably fail because you don't know what you're doing and all the things, but I feel like it takes a lot of like, ovaries. I don't like to say balls because we know vaginas and ovaries take much more of a hit than balls.
Correct. Well,
it takes a lot of that intestinal fortitude, so it's
it
like
does.
really...
And that's also why having partners has been really important to me. Like I need
tell
somebody.
me how you found Anne.
So I literally found Anne through my puppy. So after the
Anne's
neighbor, Anne's in New York too, and the neighbor with the puppy moved away, and so now we were dogless, and my kids were begging me to get a dog, and so basically just to back up, before I met Anne, when I decided like, okay, I'm going to start my own business, I just started talking to everybody about that I came across, like what I'm interested in, what I'm trying to do, and just trying to sort of drum up that, like what was that opportunity going to look like and what was going to stick. And the thing that stuck was that I met a woman and then we quickly became 3 partners and started a business called Seed and Mill, which was we opened a shop in Chelsea Market. And I mean, all of this was like, we literally went and pitched Chelsea Market we didn't even have a business incorporated. Like we had a few samples and an idea and a deck. And we're like, this is the shop that we're going to open. And we got a lease.
What did it have?
It had tahini and halva, so basically sesame-based products. And what was really interesting, it was really, really niche. But what was really interesting about that business, and it's still going. It's it's always kind of been this little profitable business, but really interesting case that at the time we sort of hit this wave of millennials getting into like foodies becoming a thing, which really wasn't a thing before. And I think it kind of started with millennials with it was a vegan dessert that we were offering, and gluten-free and also ethnic, and ethnic meaning like it kind of a lot of different ethnicities have both sesame products in their cuisine, but also, a real nostalgia for whether you're Jewish or Middle Eastern, or like it was kind of this peace food that, every
That's really cool. Wow.
Argentinian, they have a similar, I forget what it's called, but they have a similar food to this, I think actually made from peanuts, but like halva is this it's a sweet confection that has sort of the consistency of like the inside of a Butterfinger candy bar. And we had different flavors, and it was really beautiful and visual and really nice. And so it was kind of a great way for me to cut my teeth. It was a very different type of business from the one that I'm doing now, but I learned how to both start up a business and also how to work with partners and what to do and not to do. And, but I need accountability to other people in order to kind of get, there are always other things, and having been a stay-at-home mom and having a family, like there are always important things to do. So I could always make myself busy. Yeah. And so to take myself away from the things that I was doing, also when you start up a business, I wasn't having a salary. So it was like, I needed to really kind of have that. I couldn't do it on my own.
Right.
But one of the things that I learned in that business was that it's important to have clear lanes and expertise, what you're doing in the business, the role that you're playing, so that you're not stepping on each other's toes, which we were doing a bit in Cedar Mill. And so at a certain point, it was kind of time for one of us to take that forward and the other two of us to kind of take a step back. And I didn't want to be the person to take it forward. I wanted to move forward to something else. And so it was around that time that I was kind of not out of work, but not working as much anymore. I was sort of reflecting on what I wanted to do next. I was really thinking still more in the food, nutrition, like how, dealing with my own weight gain, trying to lose the weight, et cetera. Like, how do you eat, move? What's the right thing to do when you're in menopause, which obviously is a different time of life. And, so my kids then convinced me to get a puppy. And it was at that time, the best. I mean, it was the best decision. He literally changed my life.
They do. Absolutely.
For all the reasons. He also led me to Anne. So Anne also had gotten a puppy at that time. We were both on vacation with our families, and sort of the only two, as the moms, like the only two out on the street at 6:30 in the morning with these puppies. And we kind of ran into each other. The dogs liked each other, started playing, and we started talking about everything in our lives. We were both in our mid-40s at that time, early morning walk and talks, like, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I don't know. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? What are you dealing with right now? And,
Anne
we just went deep very fast. She was the editor-in-chief of Marie Claire magazine. So she was, engaged in creating content and telling stories for women in our age group, about kind of all these things or all kinds of topics. And basically after getting to know her for a couple of weeks, we had some friends in common. We sort of really became friends. I reached out to her at maybe a month or so later. And I said, I have this idea. I think that you should quit your job and we should fix menopause because all of our friends are about to go through this. I have been struggling with this for 5 years. I'm not 100%. I mean, I know what the solution kind of is. I don't exactly know how we're going to fix this, but at the very least, we need to tell people that this is coming for them. Yeah. And that there are things that they can do. And so, long story short, she did just that. She quit her job, and we have tried, for the last 5 years to fix menopause. I think we're doing a pretty good job, which is nice. But
how big is your platform
now? Pretty big. We have tens of thousands of women that we serve every month.
It's all states right now that you're covering?
50 states. Yeah, we launched in 50 states to begin with. It's all the way that we are able to really create this direct access to menopause experts directly to the doctor, make it convenient and affordable, and not, we're really solving the problem that we're experiencing ourselves. We're our Alloy customers. We know how difficult it is to get an appointment with a doctor, how long it takes to wait for that appointment. And then, God forbid, you forget to ask your top 3 questions or the bottom 5 questions or whatever, then you have to go back through the phone tree, or, you'll never get back to the doctor yourself. again, I mean, it's really inconvenient. So Alloy is all done through secure messaging with the doctor, and you are connected directly to the doctor who answers your questions, who reads the intake. You list all of your symptoms. We go through an intake that's really guided and targeted around menopause, perimenopause, and we have a sort of formulary of solutions. Like, we offer all of the different types of menopausal hormone treatment. When there is a commercially available option, that is what we offer. So FDA approved generic patch, pill, gel. We also have a branded estradiol spray. So in different doses. We know that women are individuals. This care needs to be personalized. There are lots of options, and not one size does not fit all.
Exactly.
So it takes a bit of time. I
always talk about precision medicine.
Yeah. And just, like, we're living, breathing organisms that change.
Mm-hmm.
And so also, like, what may have worked for you yesterday may not work for you tomorrow.
Perimenopause is a roller coaster. So.
But yeah, the interesting thing is that I never went through perimenopause.
Yeah,
that's kind of the weird part, So between Anne and me, also, like, we have really different experiences. She's still in perimenopause, and and so that's another way that we're able to really relate to the women who come to Alloy. Which is,
in terms of covering 50 states, is it? I'm just asking for my own purpose. Do you have different doctors in different states that are licensed?
Yeah. Yeah. So we
cover all 50.
We have multiple doctors, and most of our doctors have multiple state licenses.
Right.
So they can treat women who are, you have to have a doctor who's licensed in your own
in those states.
State. Okay. Yeah. And so, using technology, it's interesting. We were actually talking to Kelly Casperson recently, and she made a really good point, which is right now is kind of this really amazing time where the system is broken enough. The problem is big enough, and the technology is good enough to create what we've created. Whereas, in the past, like
5-10 years ago,
the timing wouldn't, the conversation is loud enough also that women are able to accept even the idea of being in menopause. And what we're trying to tell you is, like, it's kind of great. You don't you don't have to get your period anymore. You don't, deal with tampons and bleeding and all that stuff. But also, like, this time of life is really interesting because you have the decades of experience leading up to, where you are right now, but you also have decades ahead of you to enjoy. And, for most of us, either we've had children or we're beyond the point of wanting to have children or thinking that we're going to have children. So all of that, stress and anxiety and, just busyness is kind of abating. And, it's a really great time to start thinking about yourself.
What do I want to do with myself?
Exactly. And take care of yourself. I was reflecting back on it in another conversation with somebody that, like, for so many years, I was definitely not the priority in my life. Like, my family was first, my kids were first, my husband, like, everybody else came before I did. And there was, a point in time, certainly now is it, but also as I needed to treat my own symptoms, that I started to realize, like, I actually need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Or else I can't take care of everybody else.
Absolutely.
Because I
That's
don't have
true self-care,
space.
right? I think getting yourself treated for your perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms is the first step to first care. Because I always say in midlife, we're juggling so much, right? Some people still have kids they're kind of shuffling out the door. Some people have parents they're taking care of that are now in nursing homes because, hey, maybe, or not in nursing home, maybe they're actually taking care of them. And they're the ones that, didn't get the estrogen when they should have. Maybe I don't, it's like a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
And then you compound that with, like, people are going through divorces. People are having, people that they love die in their life, like so much. And women bear that burden more than anyone else, right? Like, and we're supposed
100%.
to keep everyone together. And how can we keep everyone together or manage all this when our life is in disarray because our hormones are in such flux in perimenopause, or we've lost all of them in menopause, that it's, head to toe, I always like estrogen receptors head to toe, like it's going to affect every aspect of your being. So, I mean, there are the few people that slide through menopause and they're very lucky.
I know. I ran into a friend last night who I know is older than I am because we went to high school together and I was a freshman when she was a senior. Her brother was in my class, and she said to me, she's like, wow, you look great. And how's the business going? Whatever. I said, it's great. She's like, God, it's really funny. I'm not even in perimenopause yet. And I was like, Sarah, you are in perimenopause. I mean, you're 54 years old. Like, you may be still getting your period, but you are in perimenopause.
You are perimenopause. You're just not feeling
you're lucky. You're really, how lucky for you that you're, not. But I was like, are you sleeping? Yeah. Are you sleeping? She's like, well, not, not that much. And I was like, okay.
Are your muscles aching? Yeah, but that's not, no, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, so people, I think having this conversation and getting sort of the word out that of all of the different symptoms that you may not associate with menopause or want to associate with menopause are a part of that transition. And, what we've really tried to do is create something that is available and flexible for anybody, any woman in the United States to get the care. And what we started with in our first year was really addressing the pain. Like, okay, hot flashes, the acute symptoms of menopause, like how do we get women what they need for that? And then the second year of our business, and so now obviously we offer all kinds of different things, but was like, once you've solved the pain, then you have space in your mind, in your life to spark some joy. So what are the other things that you want to do? And I know you recently started using
the M4,
which is like, and it's funny. I never went through perimenopause, so I didn't have the ups and downs of the ravage on my skin, luckily. But when I kind of discovered vaginal estrogen a couple of years ago when I accidentally induced genitourinary syndrome of menopause in myself, truly by accident. It had never been one of my symptoms. Also, as I said, like everybody's different. So there's, a whole cocktail of, host of symptoms, like 100 plus symptoms, and everybody will have their own special cocktail of like what's affecting them. And who knows the universe decides which we're going to get, but we're going to get something.
Yeah.
And so vaginal dryness and pain and incontinence had never really been my personal symptom until I accidentally got a prescription purely by accident for half my normal dose. I had been taking 1 milligram of estrogen orally for 8 years. And all of a sudden I was taking half a milligram. And after 3 months, I started peeing in my pants, literally lost control of my bladder. I had all of the, the sort of painful vaginal symptoms, like really uncomfortable. And luckily I, have access to vaginal. I knew what it was, but although it took me a minute as well, like it really took peeing in my pants to be like, oh, I know what's happening here, so but the interesting thing was I was in the Netherlands at the time. So I didn't have my own alloy prescription for vaginal estrogen at that point because I hadn't needed it or thought I hadn't needed it. And it was kind of actually also before the whole conversation about vaginal estrogen and how important it is for preventive reasons. And so I just hadn't used it.
Yeah.
And it took me 3 different doctors in the Netherlands to get a prescription for it, to the point that I literally walked into the last office and I said, I'm here for vaginal estrogen. If you're not going to give it to me, if you won't prescribe, then I'm going to walk. I'm not even going to tell you.
I'm not even going to talk to you. Yeah.
I'm going to walk out and I'm going to.
It's interesting because I always thought like Europe was so much more progressive, but I see like, as I get DM from patients all over the world and they're always like, well, we don't have this here. And how do I get this?
The WHI did global
worldwide damage.
Worldwide damage. I mean, the information that they use, that they base their prescribing guidelines on, is from the WHI.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so, I've now like given out copies. I have a box of Estrogen Matters that I have in my house there that I give out to every doctor I go to. I've given it to, I told you that I've now since had a prophylactic double mastectomy in the last several months, because after doing this now for so many years and speaking to so many women who are dealing with menopause after breast cancer, and that's a whole other discussion, of course, of whether or not estrogen after breast cancer, and whatever you believe about it, it still is. I could not, for the life of me, fathom going sort of into surgical menopause again and going through breast cancer treatment. And given that my risk as a BRCA carrier was about 80%, unnuanced, who knows? There's no way to really sort of tailor that yet to like, well, if you eat more broccoli or if you do more exercise or if you breastfed,
and I think it's
like, is there anything that
Right. And I think it's important just to say that, BRCA1 and 2 do confer a higher, like sometimes depending on which one, up to 85% risk of breast cancer, depending on which one, like, 70+% risk of ovarian cancer. And these are mutations that you carry genetically, right? So you don't have any, control over them. And so just as a public service announcement, like if you have, usually the guidelines are if you have 2 or more family members on the same side with breast cancer, any breast cancer family member, first or second degree, that's less than age 50 that got breast cancer, so premenopausal, or any first or second degree relative with ovarian cancer. If you have any of that on your family history, then you qualify for most insurances covering you to get tested for a host of genetic mutations, and BRCA1 and 2 are some of them. But, there's like a check mutation, which might be like 60%. I can't remember offhand now, but I use the lab called Myriad Genetics, and I don't work for them, but they're just the lab I use. And so they actually do offer like a panel of like 30 plus mutations to screen from. And then they actually give you a lifetime risk. And so as a general rule, if your lifetime risk is over 20%, you can choose to do what you want in terms of like breast and stuff, but you should start getting mammograms and MRIs every 6 months starting after age 30. Or the earliest age is 30, but some people, like if their family member got it once they were 35, maybe they would start, a little bit younger, but mostly we start around age 30.
Yeah.
And so some people then battle the fact that like for the next, 50 years, I'm going to be doing breast exams, mammograms, and MRIs every 6 months. Like, so that also pushes them in one direction, especially if their risk is like upwards of 60, 70, 80%. Then they have these discussions about, is it better for me to then, avoid these risks altogether and be risk averse and take care of my breast and, ovarian risks by having surgical removal.
Yeah. So that's what happened to me. And I had, all of those risk factors. As I said, my mother was 36. So I started getting screened when I was 25 and was having every 6 months mammo, sono, MRI for, 25 years.
I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a lot.
Like being busy. I mean, self-care goes out the window then,
It was a lot. It was a lot to manage. And also, as I said, like, because neither my mother nor my grandmother died from it, and it was having a mastectomy is cosmetic. It's a bigger surgery, and I've now had 2 surgeries. Like, I didn't want to do it. So it took 10 years between my ovarian surgery and my breast surgery. But now I've done it. I'm happy that I've done it. And my risk was greater than 80% lifetime. So there was, I was more likely to get it than not.
Right.
I lost my train of thought.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Where we were.
But I think we were talking about just how, all of this affected, where we're back up. We were talking about, when you talked to Anne about it and how you guys decided to move forward with this.
Oh, I was talking about M4. I was talking about my vaginal symptoms. And so I used vaginal cream. I finally got the prescription. And then I, of course, got some through Alloy as well. So I have multiple tubes. Sometimes I give it out as a 50th birthday present to my friends. I'm like, here, this is what you need, because I have extra. But it was so effective, so fast, and it cured my incontinence. I'd never peed in my pants again. And it got rid of all of the, sort of painful dryness and itchy burning symptoms that I was experiencing, painful sex. That I was like, this is so amazing. I'm going to put it on my face and see what happens, because I understood the science also of like what it's doing for your skin. It's hydrating your cells. It's creating collagen. It's improving elasticity. It's, it's plumping, thickening the skin so that it doesn't tear and burn. So, and the results of using the vaginal cream on my face were so fantastic. Although the vaginal cream wasn't a nice cream, that I thought, well, why don't women have access to this? Like, why do we not know that? And why is this not available? This is hiding in plain sight. We should actually be using topical estrogen on other areas besides our vaginas. And so we innovated the Alloy's M4 cream, and we work with a compounding pharmacy to make it. And we actually use estriol because that was the type of estrogen that was in the vaginal cream that I got in Europe. So things are different, but estriol is
less potent usually.
It is sort of thought to be less potent. There's not as much information about it, but it is the type of estrogen that kind of soars when you're pregnant. And so, you think about why women look amazing and vibrant and radiant when they're pregnant frequently, like has a lot to do with the estriol. So anyway, in the meantime, as you know, we launched it. We've been selling it to great effect for, it's been a huge seller for the last year and a half. But there were a lot of people who were like, estriol, what's that? Or is it better than estradiol? Why are you using this? Are you sure it's safe? Are you sure it's not systemic? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, there was a lot of buzz on social media.
A lot of buzz.
Actually, last year they actually had Dr. Ellen Gendler at the Menopause Society meeting, and so she spoke about it. And that's actually, after that, I compounded estriol, for myself until I realized M4 was available. I didn't have an idea at that time.
Yeah.
But
so Ellen is actually now an Alloy medical advisor, and we were in big contact with her before the NAMS meeting that she attended, because we had reached out to her. Somebody had put us in contact with her because they were her patient and knew that she used her estrogen cream, her vaginal cream, like her Premarin cream, under her eyes for 25 years. And so we were like, we reached out to her, and we have a great relationship with her, and are happy that she's sort of on the train of telling people that this is really good for your skin, something that can be helpful.
Yeah, she had some great before and afters that she shared with us at the menopause meeting.
Yeah. And so, but one of the things that we did, which I'm really excited about, was, in order to be able to really be confident about the information that we're imparting, we did a double-blind, placebo-controlled 3-arm study comparing estradiol to estriol and, how it works topically on the face. And the interesting thing is that they are broadly similar. Like the effects of estriol and estradiol topically are not that great in some, but both had really statistically significant improvements in hydration, in elasticity and collagen, and just general overall radiance, overall skin health, like 68% improvement in skin health versus a placebo, 88% improvement in hydration. Like, this is an important tool for your face and something that, or your skin generally. And, instead of just being told the same way that women are frequently dismissed and told, like, oh, just use lube instead of actually using vaginal estrogen, like, it's not going to solve the problem.
This is not the Band-Aid. Yeah.
Right. And so, like, moisturizers are helpful, but they're not going to solve the issue that estrogen loss causes in your skin. And so we, this is all sort of part of our, like, joy sparking move now, that it's not just about
we'll do our own research.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're sort of tired of people saying, like, oh, there's not enough research, and so therefore we don't know, and we're not going to give you the help or the treatment that you deserve, but it's hiding in plain sight. So we're doing a lot more research on things like that.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. We also offer topical sildenafil, which, is the generic Viagra for women. Another thing that, like, why shouldn't women get access to something that men have had for 25 years? The clitoris and the penis are basically the same organ.
Right.
Like, every other medication that we take has been tested on men. Why all of a sudden this one that, that, like, is only really for pleasure enhancement? I mean, sensitivity enhancement, like, there's nothing, it's only a sort of sex tool. Right. But oh no, that's not something that we should have for women or offer, so, like, all of these things were really
there's actually a sildenafil cream actually that's being tested by a pharmaceutical group as well, that for female arousal disorder. But it's true, like, bringing blood flow to the area, opening up, that's what arousal is engorgement. So, if applying sildenafil, which actually just vasodilates the area, if applying that to the clitoris, and the clitoris not just being what you see, but behind the labia, the crura kind of sit right behind there. So there's a lot of tissue that gets engorged. So why not apply it to that area and see? And a lot of patients get very good results from that.
Yeah. And there are no contraindications. It's basically good for anybody, or it may not help. Again, back to, like, libido is complicated, and, it's not going to solve your relationship if you're having marital problems or whatever, but it may help you feel better. And everybody has their own, everybody's an individual. So, it's a tool. It may help it may not work for you, but it's
Yeah, we
something at
can't
least that you should.
extract the husband or the partner from your situation, which is like the
No.
biopsychosocial approach to the, but like, if it's a biologic component, it should help in that
Yeah.
capacity.
And I always tell women, like, try it yourself first. Don't try
Yeah,
it first with in a
exactly.
situation with a partner where, and don't tell them,
Right.
especially if it's the first time, because then there's all that added pressure of like, this has to be
Sure.
perfect or that,
Right.
so,
Right.
I think the thing that we're having the most fun with is really being able to talk to women directly and have these
I
types of
love it.
conversations and
Yeah.
use our experience and just sort of all the things that we've learned and from talking to people like you and other great doctors like Corinne Men and Mary
Yeah.
Claire and
Oh,
Kelly and everybody, Rachel
and
Rubin, like
Sharon
there's
Malone, I had on my
Sharon,
podcast.
of
She's
course,
wonderful.
Sharon Malone,
Yeah.
who our chief
Yeah.
medical advisor. How could I forget her? She's the
Yeah.
best. And, we've
Yeah.
had such an amazing time having, I mean, Sharon really single-handedly is the person who turned my life around and gave me the confidence to know what was going on with me, to, feel confident in what I was doing, to help parse like what are the important things about menopausal hormone treatment or what's the noise. Up until that point, I was really trying to start for 5 years. I was trying to figure it out for myself. And then when I met
Yeah.
Anne, we were I was, what we knew was that also after having, Anne actually went to go hear Avram Blooming speak in 2020 before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And she came back and we had a lot of discussions about estrogen up until
He's
that
one of the
point.
authors of Estrogen Matters, for those of you who don't know him.
He's amazing.
Right.
He is
Him and Carol Tavris.
Tabris. Yeah.
Mhm.
He's like a national treasure. And she came back from hearing him speak. And up until that point, she actually had thought that estrogen had given her mother breast cancer.
Yeah.
And her mother actually ended up dying of heart disease after being taken off of her hormones. And and Anne was like, well, the one thing we know is that the only thing that really works is estrogen. And up until
Yeah.
that point, we had been thinking like, what, how do we solve this? Like without going
Hmm.
into pharmaceuticals. And we realized like, if you're not talking to women about estrogen at this time of their lives, you're just doing them an absolute disservice. And
Absolutely.
that's what really back to your original question of like what motivated us to sort of start Alloy and to do what we're doing. It was like we sort of started peeling away the onion. I had my experience. I was patient zero. I understood the profound impact that taking estrogen had had on my own personal life. And luckily we had investors who were supportive of us kind of going in this direction. But we
Yep.
realized like women are starved for good information. They have
Hmm.
no access to this expertise, no matter where they live, how much money they have, what color their skin is, who they are. Doesn't matter. They cannot access it. And
Yes.
the solution that is so safe and so protective and is really going to solve the problems that they're experiencing today has been incorrectly maligned and poisoned by the medical community or
Right.
the powers that be. And so all of that really just needs to change. And the
Right.
conversation, the
Like
narrative
Rachel
around
Rubin
it,
says, it's like the worst PR. They've gotten the worst PR.
awful, awful. And so that's where we were like, well, but we're good at PR. I actually
Yeah.
had worked in PR, and
Yeah.
Anne was the editor in chief of a national women's magazine. Like, we
Yeah.
can change the story, and that's what
Yeah.
we're going to do. And that
Right.
is what we've, I think been
Yeah.
instrumental in doing, and what we're having such.
Yeah, and I think it's really the perfect storm of activities because I feel like, pre-pandemic, telemedicine wasn't as an accepted platform
Right.
because, you just didn't know. Can you get, and obviously, like, you still have to get your vulva examined and you still have to,
Exactly.
so it's not like Alloy's trying to replace. I always when I talk
No.
to Cora, and she's always like, it's not like Alloy's trying to replace. But if you can't find someone and you want this, we can work with whoever you're working with at this juncture to try to make sure that you're getting the correct care that you need.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, of course, there is still a need for a regular physical exam. And, and if something is acute, then you need to get that checked out. But for example, like, when women have heart palpitations or start experiencing all these symptoms, to tell them to go down the path of like, well, before you start taking hormones, you should get a cardiac workup, and you
Yep.
should,
Yep.
get all this testing, and which becomes really expensive, really time consuming, and very, very anxiety inducing. Whereas
Sure.
actually the more correct, if you're like between 40 5 and 60 and you're experiencing these symptoms, like the order of operations should be try hormone therapy. If you're still having palpitations and, and these symptoms have not abated after also adjusting the dose or form factor within the first 3 to 5 months, then at least you have that information. You know that maybe it's not hormonally induced. It's not, and so I think
unless you have like a strong family history where people are dropping dead in their 40s or 50s because of their cardiovascular disease, right?
Exactly.
Like I think that,
but those
some of those things are nuanced.
Yeah, very nuanced, and also doesn't mean therefore that you shouldn't also hormone therapy. Like you could do both at the same time.
You could do both at the same time. Yeah.
You could do both at the same time, especially because you're probably going to have to wait about 8 months to get that cardiac workup. And I keep saying workout. Right.
Yeah.
It's on my mind. And also, like, if you have that kind of personal history, family history, the likelihood is that you're being followed up. I mean, hopefully you're being followed by that,
if you have the access.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So always.
Well, I think what you guys have done is really wonderful, given the amount of women going through perimenopause and menopause in this country alone. Worldwide, obviously, it's kind of crazy that we can't access more. But because like I said, I get DMs all the time from people in other countries like, what do I do? And I've actually worked with some people in different countries, and it's like, I come there once a year. Can you? And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. So, just trying to get it out there. But I feel like what you guys done is really remarkable. And there's a lot of platforms out there, but I think that when it comes to like evidence-based medicine and really, getting the word out, you guys have done wonderful.
We're the only ones also who only have doctors prescribing. And I think 99% of them are OB-GYNs who have decades of experience working with women in this life stage. So, that is a differentiator and something that's important to us.
And you're very, very intentional about that, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Monica. It's been a pleasure. I love what you guys are doing. I wish you all the best in a trajectory that'll affect more women across the country, because that's what we need. And, as always, I'm here to educate so you could advocate for yourself. So now you know what's available. If you don't have a provider or clinician that is listening to you, or that you feel like you possibly are a candidate for hormone therapy and you're not getting that help, check out Alloy's platform. Again, you still, if you need to get your exams done, all that stuff, probably need to see your clinician, but at least they can bridge a gap for you that you can do that. Because I feel like I always feel like a lot of clinicians get a little, they get a little like worried when they see all these, and I'm like, they're not substituting you. They're just,
the other thing is, if you do have a great clinician who is providing you with hormone therapy, he is most likely not giving you access to topical estrogen for your face, topical sildenafil for your, for your vulva, to low dose oral minoxidil dosed for women for your hair thinning. Like, there are other things also that women want and are looking for and just can't access, that are there and are safe, but are really hiding in plain sight. And I think we're trying to close that gap and give women what they're looking for, and what's going to improve their quality of life and their sense of self, and their, prepare them for the next 50 years. Because there's a lot of life left to live. So let's do it. Let's make the rest of your life the best of your life, is kind of what I
Absolutely. I love it. The rest of your life, the best of your life. Great way to end. So again, I'm Dr. Rahman, Gyno Girl. Thank you for tuning into Gyno Girl Presents Sex, Drugs, and Hormones. As always, I'm here to educate so you could advocate. Please tune in next week for another episode. Thank you. Have a second, please subscribe to this podcast. I'd love for you to be a follower and learn as much as you can about the things that we're going to talk about with all the people on our journey. Please review us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. These reviews really help. Review us, comment, tell me what else you want to hear to get more information. My practice website is www.cgcchicago.com. My website for Gyno Girl is www.gynogirltv.com. My Instagram is Gyno Girl, so please follow me for some good content. Additionally, I have a YouTube channel, Gyno Girl TV, where I love to talk about all these things on YouTube. And please subscribe to my newsletter, Gyno Girl News. which will be available on my website. I will see you next time.